Few fighters have burst into the spotlight like Cat Zingano. 2 fights, 2 TKOs, and the destruction of the future GOAT. But one fighter stopped her dead in her tracks, and with that, a landslide of destruction toppled her inside and outside of the octagon. But Zingano pulled herself through hell and climbed all the way back to the top of the game when everybody thought it was over. And this is her story.
Because to this day, that is one of the rawest moments I've ever seen inside the octagon. Like when you jump, like when they stopped that fight and you screamed, it was bone chilling.
Listen.
Dude.
Cat Zingano's MMA career began with a bang. 9 straight wins, 9 more reasons to put Zingano's name in every mouth of the division. And she made her UFC debut in 2013 against Miesha Tate. She only kept the smackdown rolling as she showed Miesha Tate the textbook definition of short-circuit violence. After a competitive start, Zingano unleashed in the 3rd round with a barrage of nasty knees that cracked through Tate with some seriously scary power. A brutal TKO victory that immediately put her on the radar. She came in the octagon looking for violence. Her next challenge? Amanda Nunes. At the time, Nunes was a rising star, but Zingano showed why she was the real deal. After surviving a tough first round, Cat took over, mauling Nunes with relentless grappling and savage ground and pound. One of her takedowns looking like Jake the Snake smacking down a good old-fashioned DDT. By the 3rd round, it was all over. Zingano had ground and pounded Nunes into an early onset of CTE. Zingano's hand was raised again, and Amanda Nunes left the cage battered and bloodied. Cat Zingano wasn't just winning, she was completely dismantling legends in the making. A title shot against Ronda Rousey was her reward. It felt like destiny. Like Zingano's star was finally set to shine. But destiny has a sick sense of humour. The title shot against Ronda Rousey was supposed to be Cat Zingano's crowning moment. It was UFC 184, February 28th, 2015, and the anticipation was electric. Both fighters were unbeaten, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. Zingano's never-quit violent style versus Rousey's unmatched dominance. It was billed as one of the most exciting matchups in women's MMA history. And then, it all went wrong. Zingano came charging across the octagon before throwing a flying knee. But before Cat knew what was even happening, she was locked in a lightning-quick armbar, making her tap immediately before giving Rousey the fastest submission in women's MMA history. 14 seconds was all it took. For Zingano, it was more than a loss than the end of her streak. It was a public heartbreak and humiliation on the sport's biggest stage. The aura of invincibility had evaporated, and as devastating as the Rousey fight was, it was only the beginning of a downward spiral that would bring absolute devastation to her life inside and outside the octagon. Outside of the cage, Zingano's life was marked by tragedy. In 2014, her husband and coach, Mauricio Zingano, took his own life. The loss was unfathomable, and Cat was left to pick up the pieces for herself and her son. Somehow, through sheer willpower and grit, she managed to keep going, and even when the weight of the world stamping her in the dirt. Her struggles weren't limited to her personal life. After the Rousey loss, Zingano's career hit a rough patch. She tore her ACL and the injuries piled up. She continued to push forward, but something wasn't the same. It was like the violent grit that had taken her this far was somewhere in the shadow of her past. She lost 3 of her next 4 fights. By 2019, the UFC cut ties with her after a dispute involving contact lenses during a fight. For most fighters, that would have been end of the road. But Cat Zingano, no, she wasn't done yet. In 2020, Zingano signed with Bellator MMA, and just like before, she silenced the doubters. 5 straight wins re-established her as a force in the sport, and the buzz began to build. Could Cat Zingano become a champion once again? The question led to a highly anticipated showdown with Chris Cyborg at Bellator 300 for the featherweight title. But once again, the outcome wasn't in Cat's favour. Cyborg's power overwhelmed her, and the fight ended in the first round. It was a bitter pill to swallow once again. But if we've learned anything about Zingano, it's that she doesn't stop. She's been a widow, a mother, a trailblazer, and a survivor. Her story is proof that sometimes the greatest victories aren't about gold belts and Hall of Fame records. It's an action-packed storm of fights that come from every facet of life, and it's how you rise above that creates a true legacy. As she continues to fight, one question lingers. How much does this warrior have left to give?